Attending class in university is just a big meme. What do I mean? Let's find out. Good morning everyone and welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, I still sound really awful, but I am probably sounding better than last time. I don't know. Maybe. Might compare it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, so basically what I wanted to talk about was the fact that in software engineering degrees, or software development, or web development, or whatever sort of name your university has given your IT degree, where you focus on programming, there is actually no practical reason to show up to class. So, at least for me, the two main categories of classes are your tutorials and your practicals. So a tutorial is basically just a big group discussion where you'll have either the lecturer or some designated person that knows the subject matter will give you questions. You will discuss the questions. I'll talk about why that structure doesn't really work in a minute. And then practicals are usually you have some programming task or maybe you have to set up a VM or things like that. And we'll also talk about why that also really does not need to be a on-campus thing. So I guess we can start with the tutorials. So the main issue with the tutorials is that usually you don't have much group interactivity. So people will show up for the first couple of weeks, but when they get asked a question, nobody talks. At least this has been my experience. Whenever an answer ends up being given, it's either me or one other person. And what ends up happening is it usually ends up being the person running the tutorial just reading out the list of answers they were provided with, or they wrote themselves, they were the lecturer obviously. And what ends up happening after these tutorials is all of these solutions tend to get posted on the course website. So you go to the tutorial, nobody talks about anything. Maybe the lecturer will say some of their pre-written answers, and then these pre-written answers will then all be posted on the course website where you can just read them at your own leisure. And you could have just saved yourself a bunch of times by not even going to the tutorial. So, why go to tutorials? I don't know. I usually go to them for the first couple of weeks, see if anything actually important is said in them, because some lecturers don't release their answers online. In those cases, then there's a reason to actually show up, but otherwise you're really just wasting your time. You could have just stayed home, read the answers in like 5-10 minutes and be like, oh, okay, what was the point of going to an hour class then? So, the practicals. I know in things like, if you're doing some sort of science subject or anything where your practicals actually involve things that happen on campus. So if you need things that are on campus, that's one thing. When you're doing JavaScript or you're writing some SQL statements, you don't need to be on campus. You can do that on your laptop anywhere. So the way the practicals are usually structured is you're usually given some list of either tasks to complete or steps to complete a task if it's a complicated task, and then you're given the time to just be like, go and get it done. So these steps or tasks are usually provided on the course website where you can look at them outside of class. And if I'm going to just be basically writing out some JavaScript statements or writing out some SQL statements or anything like that, why am I at this practical? What exactly am I achieving by being here? Not to mention the fact that, unlike tutorials, everyone is super chatty in practicals. People tend to be quite loud and just not really getting much done, because I think everyone knows secretly that there's no point to actually being there. However, even though I've said that most of the time tutorials and practicals are not really important to go to, a lot of lecturers like to make their tutorials and practicals marked attendance. So basically, if you don't know what marked attendance is it basically, you get a part of your grade literally by showing up. And if you don't show up, you just forfeit that grade for no reason. It's usually nothing super big. It's usually like maybe 1 or 2%. If the material is just going to be online, what value does it hold for me to actually show up to these classes and do the material there when I can usually just do it in my own time, and in the case of a practical, do it in my own time when I don't have a bunch of people yelling about whatever nonsense happened in their day or whatever they want to talk about when they're not being productive. The only classes or the only practicals where people tend to be silent are the marked practicals. I understand marked practicals. Marked practicals make sense. Not marked attendance, marked practicals. So you're marked for actually doing the work. And for those classes, people tend to be quiet because they also tend to be marked practicals and marked attendance. So you have to get it done during the practical time, which is a ridiculous idea, for one thing, because the material's online anyway, so I should just be able to do the material when I want to do it, submit it online, and then you can grade it. That tends to be how the grading system works. That's how it works for assignments, it's how it works for everything else, not for practicals for some lectures. There are some that actually do this properly, where they will have marked practicals, and then they're like, just submit it online and I will mark it at some point. Usually they don't end up marking it for like 6 weeks though, but it doesn't matter because you'll get the mark at some point. So I think I've covered pretty much everything that I've wanted to say in this video. Basically, there's no practical reason to show up to classes if you're in a programming, software engineering, software development, web development, any sort of degree like that, where all of your work is stuff that can be done on your laptop and you don't need to be on campus to do it. Usually the only time it makes sense to show up to these classes is when you have assignment questions. But usually you can also ask these on the online forums that come with your course pages. I don't know about other universities, but here all of the course pages come with default online forums that usually the lecturers will answer in, but if not, the students will. And depending on the lecturer, the students will provide better answers. I've had some interesting lecturers in the past. Anyway, so I don't think I have anything else to add now. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, remember to like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon below if you want to see more from my channel. And yeah, I'm out.